Okay, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, Assalamu alaikum, Cam. Now we're going to go over pretty much a roadmap of the Arabic language. One of the things that Ustad wants us to do is record and send to him part of this chart, right? Not all 5 pages of it, just part of it, particularly the ism part of it, right? He wants us just to explain it and break it down. So we're going to do that. But before we get into that, I just want to tell you what all this means. So kalimat means word, right? And it's saying there are 3 types of word. There is an ism, a harf, and a fa'il. A fa'il is an action, also known as a verb in English. A harf is a small word that has an impact on a noun that either comes directly after it or sometime after it. An ism is anything that is not a harf or a fa'il, pretty much. And that includes a person, place, thing, adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, and so forth, right? Next up, we look at the 4 properties of an ism. And an ism has 4 properties, which are i'rab, jinns, adad, and qism. Qism being definiteness, adad being number, jinns being gender, and i'rab being the status. And we're going to get into detail about that and fully explain it. For harf, he talks about the different types of harf. So there's mansub on an ism, lil ism. So remember we learned about the nasib, mansub, that type of association. So there's particular harfs that force a word to go into nasb. That's what it's talking about. Majrur, so it's talking about certain harf that force a word to go into a state of jar, and we learn those. Bata, kaf, lam, waw, mundu, mudkhala, rubba, hasha, min, ada, fi, an, ala, hatta, ila. This we didn't learn, and this we didn't learn, and this we didn't learn. We're going to cover this in class, but essentially what he's saying is that for a verb, when it's in its present tense, I believe, there are certain words that can make it mansub, like take a fatha on the end. And then for this, it says that there are certain words that can make a fa'il, when it's in its present tense, I believe, go into a state of majzoom. Majzoom means it just has a sukoon on the end, right? So we had mansub. Actually, I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to leave that to Ustad. And ghair just means one in which there's no effect. So then there is fi'l, and there's 2 major types. There is maldi, which is the past tense, and then there's mudari', which is the present tense, right? Within this, we'll find even more, and within this, we'll find even more, but we'll cover that when we return to class, inshallah. So let's break down the ism. This is the ism. Do not get overwhelmed. Trust, you've done all of this so far. Except this. But we're going to explain this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so i'rab is the status, right? It's the status of a word, and that is usually indicated by the ending of the word, right? So we learned that there are 3 types. There's rafa', nasb, and jar. Rafa', usually indicated by a dhamma at the end of the word, represents the doer of a verbal sentence and or the subject and predicate of a nominal sentence, right? Nasb is the detail for a verbal sentence, right? So it's the thing that is receiving the action or has some type of association to the action, right? And then jar occurs in 2 cases, and that's where it occurs after a harfu jar, right? The noun after a harfu jar gets put into a state of jar, or in an association where the word that is being associated to takes on a kasra, usually, and that represents a state of jar. So we had the example of kitabullahi. Kitabullahi. Kitab, book, is being associated to Allah, right? Kitabullahi. So now we're going to get into something that might seem a little bit new, but it's not too complex. There's been tons of hints at it throughout these videos. We're just going to finally give you a list. So now we're going to deal with properties when it comes to status. So on the end of a word, there's 2 cases that can occur. You can have one ending, and that's known as light, or you could have a double ending, which is known as a tanween, or as heavy, right? This is just terminology. Let's get into flexibility. So there are words which are fully flexible, and these are Arab words. What is meant by fully flexible? It's talking specifically about the ending. So it can be kitabu, kitabi, and kitaba, right? It could be all of those. It could take all 3 endings. A non-flexible word is one that's just stuck in its way that it looks. It's not going to change whether it's in a state of jar, rafa, or nasb. And an example of that would be a singular and plural pointing word, which you actually learned. Remember, hada and dhalika, all those words. Whether there was a word before it, like such as a harf that was changing its state, it wouldn't look any different. It was always trapped the same way, right? Another one is words ending in alif, and then the third is isim mawsul. So let's talk about partially flexible. Partially flexible are words that can't take on a kasra. So even when they're in a state of jar, they're going to have a fatha on top, right? And this applies to female names, names of places, non-Arab names, names of colors, and comparative nouns, and body defects, and finally broken plurals with an alif in the middle, right? So these types of words cannot be heavy, meaning they can't have tanween, nor can they take a kasra. And in the case that an al is added to a mudaf, then it can become normal, be treated normal. This is something conditional. I don't know if we studied this in detail. You'd have to ask Ustad about that, because I can't think of any examples in my mind. But when you're going through this, all you have to do is just break this down in your recording and then send it. I actually sent mine in 4 different recordings. So my first was talking about i'rab, then I said the types, and there's 3 types, rafa, nasb, jar, explained what happens within them. And then I said for properties, there's 2, light and heavy, explained what light was, what heavy was, and then flexibility, the 3 types, and then listed this out. Next, we're going to get into Jinns, which means gender. So all nouns are masculine except those that are the following: words ending in a ta marbuta, words ending in a alif and a hamza, words ending in a alif maksura. Alif maksura, remember the the alif disguised as a ya, but he's not doing a good job because he doesn't even have the 2 dots on the bottom, so he's still treated like an alif. Number 4 is human body parts in pairs. Number 5 is broken plurals. Number 6 is proper names of places. Number 7 is because the Arab said so. So a word such as ard, which means earth, it doesn't have any of these signs above, but it's just simply feminine because the Arab said so. Third is adad, which is number, and they're simply singular, dual, and plural. That's pretty much all you have to say: singular, dual, and plural. And remember, for plural, there is broken plurals, which are treated as singular feminine. So anything pointing to them or describing them are going to be singular feminine, right? Finally, we have the qism, which is definiteness, and everything is common, meaning it's indefinite, so it'll probably bear a tanween unless it's an exception to it, except for the following, which are treated as proper, definite. It has the alif lam in the beginning, it's a proper name, it's the one being called. Remember back in the very first lesson, we had the example of ya kamala. We would say kamala would be definite, right? Because of that, well, not just because of that, yeah, but it can do it to like other nouns. So if I said like ya waladu, right? Waladu, which means boy, would be definite, and it would be because of that ya. It doesn't need alif lam to make it definite. That ya is making it definite because you're speaking about someone specifically who you're calling. Number 4 is the pronoun, so huwa, huma, hum, hiya, huma, hunna, anta, antum, antum, anti, antum, antunna, ana, nahnu, which you had memorized. Number 5 is pointing words such as hada, hadani, haulai, and the rest. Number 6 is connector words, which is words such as alladhi and allati, and what they do is they essentially connect a word to a concept, right? So the one who eats, that who would be your connector word, which in Arabic would be alladhi, and it's connecting someone to the concept of eating, right? Number 7 is mudaf, if the mudaf ilayhi is proper, right? So long as the mudaf ilayhi has that alif lam and it's definite, then the mudaf will be definite. And yeah, that is the table that you have to explain to Ustad and just send in. Just these last 4 pages. Okay, assalamu alaikum.